caught my husband with my friend on our kitchen counter, so I filmed everything as proof and called her husband. Now they're jobless, living with my daughter who defended him. Last year was, without a doubt, the most devastating year of my entire life. I accidentally discovered that my then-husband, Liam, was cheating on me with my best friend, Abby. I was away on a work trip for a few days. That trip was supposed to last longer, but luckily the work got done, so I ended up coming home early. I wanted to surprise Liam, so I did not bother informing him beforehand. When I got home, I saw Abby's car in the driveway and was confused. Abby was my friend since our college days, and over the years, her husband and I, along with my husband, had all become close friends. However, I had never known her to stop by without letting me know first. I checked my phone to see if she had called or if my husband had texted me to let me know Abby was here, but there were no messages at all. As I entered the house, I could hear some noises coming from the kitchen. Curious, I walked towards the noise, and that is when I spotted Liam and Abby, on our kitchen counter, kissing each other and doing the unspeakable. They were so engrossed in each other that they didn't even notice me standing there. I just stood in stunned silence, frozen by the shock of what I was witnessing. The sight of them together, in the place where me and my husband had shared so many family meals and memories together, felt like a knife to the heart. The bag slipped out of my hands as I continued to watch in disbelief. My mind struggled to process the scene in front of me. My husband, the man who had stopped being intimate with me for the past 3 months, the same man who had been cruelly calling me names like fat pig and hippo even though I wasn't overweight at all, was there, passionately kissing and touching my best friend like she was his wife. For months, he had made me feel so insecure, constantly criticizing my body, pressuring me to go to the gym and basically blaming me for why he doesn't feel attracted to me anymore. As a result, I'd been feeling awful about myself, thinking I wasn't good enough for him anymore, but all that time, it wasn't about me. It was about him and his newfound partner. That moment shattered me. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the realization that the man I had loved and the friend I had confided in had both conspired to break my heart in the cruelest way imaginable. Something inside me snapped at that moment. It was like all the pain, betrayal, and humiliation I had felt over the last few months came flooding to the surface all at once. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone and started filming them. My hands were shaking, but I knew I needed evidence of what I was witnessing. Then, fueled by pure rage, I walked right into the kitchen where they were still entangled. There was a pan lying on the counter, and without hesitation, I picked it up and threw it at my husband to get their attention. The pan hit him with a loud thud, and both of them jumped in shock. Their heads whipped around, and the looks on their faces were priceless. Their eyes widened in horror as they saw me standing there, phone in hand, recording every second of their shame. Abby started scrambling to cover up her body, looking desperate as she tried to hide herself from the camera. I was so disgusted by what she had done that I walked right up to her and slapped her hard across the face. The sound of it echoed through the kitchen, and she just stood there, stunned and humiliated. Then, as Liam tried to intervene, I turned and shoved him away from me. I didn't care. All the while, I kept my phone in my hand, recording everything. It felt like the only thing keeping me grounded in that moment. I wanted both of them to feel the pain that I was feeling. But I wasn't done. I stopped the recording and immediately video called Abby's husband, Kyle. My heart was racing, but I knew this was the right thing to do. When he answered the call, he had no idea what was coming. I turned the phone to show him his half-naked wife frantically trying to find her clothes, fumbling to dress herself in shame. I calmly told him exactly what had happened, that I had come home early from my trip and caught his wife and my husband together in our kitchen. Kyle was stunned. I could see the shock and disbelief on his face, just as I had felt only minutes before. He didn't even have words, completely taken aback, much like I had been when I first walked in. Liam tried to hide his face in shame, all the while, yelling at me that I was going too far by humiliating them this way. I told Kyle I was letting him know because he deserved to know the truth, just like I did. No one should be blindsided by betrayal like this. After that, I turned my attention back to Abby. She was still trying to apologize, trying to explain herself through her tears, begging me to just listen to her, but I asked her to leave my house right then and there, before I harmed her any further. No apology from her or my ex-husband could ever make up for the betrayal I had just uncovered. I watched as Abby hurried out, humiliated and ashamed, while Liam stood there, looking helpless and defeated. You might say I have a short temper, but I've worked hard all my life and built a successful career for myself. I've never really needed anyone to survive. Hence, I would have been fine had my husband simply asked for a divorce, but the fact that he chose to sleep with my best friend in my own house that I paid for behind my back was unforgivable. When Liam tried to apologize, saying he was sorry and asking for another chance, promising he could be a better husband, I ignored him and started packing up his things. I informed him that he and I were done, and I was going to divorce him, no matter what he said to me. Hearing this, he started yelling at me for bringing up divorce, which is so insensitive to throw at someone's face for a foolish mistake. He even attempted to hold my hands to stop me from packing his things, which is when I threatened to call the police and have him removed from the house in front of all our neighbors. I knew how much he valued his reputation, which is why I also knew that this loser would have never stopped cheating on me or confessed about the affair had I not discovered it with my own eyes. You see, at the time, my ex-husband, Liam, wasn't even working. He had been let go from his job after being caught breaking some company rules, and while I don't feel like diving into the details of what he did, it was serious enough that one of his co-workers reported him. As a result, he was immediately fired. While I was the primary breadwinner, he became a stay-at-home husband after that. In truth, it wasn't a financial strain on us. I earned 3 times what he was making anyway, so taking care of all the expenses on my own didn't really bother me. What I didn't realize at the time, however, was how he was spending all that extra time. I suppose, in hindsight, it makes sense. I knew for a while Abby and Kyle had been having some struggles in their marriage. With Liam being home all day and Abby also having issues in her own marriage with her husband, Kyle, they probably had more than enough opportunity to connect on a deeper level. To think that while I was out working hard to support our family, Liam was betraying me right under our own roof. In my own home, with someone I trusted completely, it's a rage that's hard to put into words. Meanwhile, Liam kept trying to argue with me, saying that divorce wasn't an option since we had been married for so long and that we should go for couple counseling instead. He had the nerve to act like the victim, almost as if I was the one who had done something wrong by even suggesting for us to part ways. I stared at him, disbelief and anger burning in my chest, and I asked him point blank if he had seriously thought about the consequences before he decided to sleep with my best friend. Did it cross his mind at all what might happen? Did he expect me to forgive and forget and just keep living with him? Liam's face turned beet red, clearly flustered, and he stammered out that he had always been loyal to me all these years, so I should not just throw away our marriage for one mistake. Then he further tried to downplay it, saying this was only the 4th time he and Abby had slept together, as if that somehow made it any less of a betrayal. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He then had the audacity to blame Abby for the whole thing, claiming that she had been the one to seduce him because her own marriage with Kyle was falling apart. The level of denial and cowardice was unreal. I could barely stand to look at him. It was clear that this man, the one I had once called my husband, was no longer someone I could stay married to any longer. After a lot of back and forth, I successfully managed to kick Liam out of the house. Unsurprisingly, with nowhere else to go, Liam reached out to her adult daughter, Mary, for help. Now, I've always known that Mary is closer to her father. She's been a daddy's girl for as long as I can remember, and I never had any issue with that. I love that she had such a strong bond with him, even if it sometimes meant they were a bit closer than we were. When Mary called me, her voice was filled with confusion and concern. She asked what had happened, and told me how Liam had called her for help, telling her how I had kicked him out because of a silly fight and he was now homeless. I told her the truth, and also sent her the video I had taken of Liam and Abby together. I didn't want there to be any doubt in her mind about what her father had done. She deserved to know exactly why things had reached this point. Mary was understandably furious with her dad after seeing the proof I had. She told me how she couldn't believe that her dad could do something so disgusting and understood why I kicked him out. However, despite her anger, she told me that she still had this hope that I might reconsider, that maybe, in time, I could process everything and find a way to work things out. She reassured me that she would take care of Liam for the time being. As hurt as she was by his actions, she couldn't just turn her back on him entirely, and I understood that. In the days that followed, both Liam and Mary started taking turns calling me, each trying to convince me to forgive him for the sake of the family. It felt like emotional manipulation at its worst, especially coming from Liam, who was clearly using Mary's affection for him to sway her in his favor. I could see right through it, and it made me even angrier. I was furious at him for dragging our daughter into this mess, trying to play on her love for him to get what he wanted. At the same time, I was deeply hurt and confused by Mary's stance. I couldn't understand why, in such a difficult time, she seemed more focused on supporting her dad than me. It was like she was blind to the pain I was going through, and that hurt more than I can explain. Despite their efforts, I made the decision to move forward with a divorce. I wasn't going to be manipulated or guilt-tripped into staying in such a toxic marriage. So, I went ahead and filed for divorce from Liam, fully knowing it was the right thing for me. Around the same time, Kyle, Abby's husband, was going through his own process of filing for divorce. He was just as devastated as I was, and in that shared pain, we became really good friends. He was one of the few people who truly understood what I was going through, and having him to talk to me the entire situation a little more bearable. To be clear, though, we've always remained just friends. Nothing romantic has ever or will ever happen between us. Anyways, when I finally served Liam with the divorce papers at Mary's house, he started begging me for forgiveness, making all sorts of promises about how he would never so much as look at another woman again and how he was ready to cut Abby out of our lives for good. It was pathetic, to be honest, watching him try to clean up the mess he had created only when he realized I was serious about leaving. Since Mary was there when I served in the papers, she urged me to reconsider for the sake of her. She told me how she had seen firsthand how much her dad loves me while she was growing up, and that just because he had slept with someone else, accidentally, as she put it, didn't mean he loved that woman. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was trying hard to defend her father, to downplay the seriousness of what he had done, but I wasn't about to let that sway me. I told her there was nothing for me to think over when the fact was simple. Her dad had betrayed me, and not just in any typical way, but with my best friend, and in our own home. There was no coming back from that. I wasn't going to waste time debating whether or not to give him another chance. He had destroyed our marriage, and I was determined to leave him. Mary tried to argue with me a bit, asking if I would really be happy without him in my life. I told her that, yes, I was absolutely going to be happy now that I wouldn't have to worry about my husband sleeping with anyone while I was busy with work and bringing in the money. This wasn't a decision I had come to lightly. I had made up my mind, and no amount of pleading or reasoning was going to change that. The divorce process turned out to be surprisingly simple. Early on in our marriage, I had insisted on a prenuptial agreement, and because of that, Liam couldn't lay a finger on any of my assets. To make sure things went smoothly, I had hired the best lawyer in town, someone who knew exactly how to handle cases like mine. It was clear from the start that my victory in court was inevitable. When the divorce was finally finalized, it felt like an immense weight to have been lifted off my shoulders, almost as if I had been freed from a prison I hadn't even realized I was in. For so long, I had been so blindly in love with Liam that I couldn't see how much better my life could be without him. It was as if his toxic presence had been dragging me down like a dead weight, suffocating me. But now, I was free to live my life on my own terms, without the constant hurt and betrayal hanging over me. As word spread in our circle about what had happened between Liam and Abby, more and more people started reaching out to me. Friends, family members, and even acquaintances began to show their support, letting me know they were there for me. Even Liam's own family made it very clear that I had done the right thing by divorcing him. They were furious with him, completely disgusted by his behavior, and in some ways, their support made me feel validated. It was a relief to realize that I wasn't alone in this, that people saw through Liam's actions and stood by my side. However, the only person who remained in Liam's corner was our daughter, Mary. Somehow, despite everything, she still felt sorry for him. Maybe it was the lifelong bond she had with her father, or maybe it was her way of coping with the entire situation. This year, I decided to go all out for my birthday. It was my first birthday as a single woman after being married to Liam for so long, and I felt like celebrating my newfound freedom. My friends and I planned a huge bash, complete with a caterer and a guest list of 50 to 60 people. I wanted it to be a night to remember. Naturally, Ka was on the guest list too, especially since he had finally recently divorced Abby after months and months of court proceedings, and we had become good friends through everything. I did send an invitation to Mary, but I made it very clear that Liam was not welcome. He was still living with Mary, and there was no way I was going to let him ruin my night. On my birthday, as the party kicked off, everyone seemed to be having a great time. People were doing shots, the energy was fantastic, and it felt like the perfect way to mark this new chapter of my life. When it came time to cut the cake, some of my close friends gave heartfelt speeches, talking about how proud they were of me for getting through such a tough year. They spoke about the betrayal I had endured and how much happier I seemed now. I was touched by the love and kindness they showed. After everything that had happened, it was nice to feel seen and valued by the people who mattered most. But then, out of nowhere, Mary stood up and announced that she had a few words she wanted to say also. I could tell she had been drinking. She looked a little unsteady, but then again, many of the guests were tipsy by this point, so I didn't think much of it at first. I figured she just wanted to wish me a happy birthday or maybe share some sweet memories. However, Mary began to criticize me in front of everyone. She talked about how disappointed she was in me for destroying my years of marriage with my ex and how heartbroken he was. Her words were loud, emotional, and full of anger. She went on to recount how, growing up, she had always believed her parents had the perfect marriage, and how I had been the one to shatter the dream by leaving Liam without even trying to work on our problems. She called me a selfish mom, accusing me of only thinking about myself when I decided to file for divorce. Her words cut deep, and hearing them in front of all my friends, on a night meant to celebrate my freedom and happiness, was gut-wrenching. Before I could even process what was happening, people started coming to my defense. My friends had seen firsthand what I had been through and weren't about to let Mary's words go unchallenged. Kyle also spoke up. He told Mary that she had no right to be angry at me when it was her dad who had betrayed me in the most hurtful way possible. He reminded her that, as my daughter and as a fellow woman, she should be more sympathetic and understanding towards me, instead of casting blame where it didn't belong. Mary tried to argue back, clearly upset, but her words were getting lost in the growing frustration of the crowd. Some of the guests even started booing her loudly, clearly appalled by how she was treating me, especially on a night like this. At that moment, I felt a wave of emotions hit me. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked at Mary, the daughter I had raised and loved so much. Mary, I think you've forgotten something important. From the very start, it was me who provided for this family. Your father, Liam, moved into my house after we got married. And while I was pregnant with you, he never truly stepped up as a parent. When I went into labor, it was me who endured hours of pain to bring you into this world. And when it came to raising you, I was the one who stayed home, took care of you, and made sure you had everything you needed. Even when I returned to work, I was the one who hired a nanny to help with your care. I was the primary breadwinner, working long hours to provide the comfortable life that you grew to enjoy. My income paid for the roof over our heads, the food on our table, and all the luxuries that you and your dad benefited from. I didn't just stop there. I continued to recount to Mary how when she had started looking for career opportunities, it was me who had used my connections to help her get an internship and eventually a job. I did all of that for her, while Liam did nothing. He wasn't there to guide or support her in the ways that mattered. He was the fun parent who spent just a few hours of his day with her, and she somehow thought the world of him. And now, after everything I had done for her and for our family, I was the one being blamed for finally standing up for myself for choosing to leave a toxic marriage. With a heavy heart, I informed her that she needed to leave. This was supposed to be my night, a celebration of my strength and resilience, but instead, she had turned it into a scene. Before leaving, Mary threatened me, saying that she would be cutting off contact with me for good. I stood my ground, despite the pain I felt, and told her that I was fine with it as long as she was happy with her decision. In that moment, as much as it hurt, I knew if Mary couldn't understand why I had to leave Liam, then maybe the distance between us was what we both needed. Watching her walk out of my party was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But I knew, deep down, that I had to choose myself this time. It wasn't about being selfish, it was about standing up for the life and happiness I deserved, no matter who tried to make me feel guilty for it. Ever since this incident at the party, some of my family members who were present at the event have reached out to me, saying that I might have been a bit too cool to my daughter and have urged me to reach out to her and apologize since she is going through a lot. They also feel that I humiliated my daughter by saying all those things in front of everyone when I could have talked to her privately. Ida for finally standing up to my daughter? Update 1. Wow, I didn't expect to receive so many DMs and comments from strangers here, all offering their wholehearted support. It feels comforting to know I didn't do anything wrong. As a mom, I'm sometimes overwhelmed with guilt. I know I made the right decision, but I still struggle with that nagging mom guilt and sometimes wonder if I should have tried harder to make things work with Liam, just for Mary's sake. As for why Mary is so fixated on our marriage, I really don't know. She's an only child and probably never imagined her parents would get divorced like her friends' parents have done. Honestly, I never thought I'd end up divorcing my ex either, but Liam's actions left me with no choice. I just could never stay in that situation. Update 2. It's been a month and a half since my last update. For everyone asking about Liam and Abby, I finally have some interesting news for you. I had mentioned before that Abby and Kyle got divorced just before my birthday party. The reason their divorce proceedings took so long, unlike mine, was because Abby and Kyle share 3 children together and they never had a prenup. However, what worked for Kyle was that he had legitimate proof that Abby had cheated, which meant she couldn't win alimony anymore. However, because of their children, she and her lawyer fought hard to successfully win child support. Since Kyle earns very well, this essentially means that the child support he is going to pay for the 3 children will be more than enough to even cover her needs. She won't even need to work and can probably sustain with just a part-time job if necessary. Now, my daughter Mary, who had decided to stop talking to me since the party and had cut off all contact, reached out to me in tears yesterday. It turns out that just a few days after my party, Liam surprised our daughter by announcing that Abby and her 3 kids would be staying with them for the next few weeks. Mary was shocked because Liam made this decision without even consulting her, and since this was her place, she had to take on the responsibility of all their expenses as both Liam and Abby don't have a job currently. Liam urged her to learn to accept his new family and talked about how they could all start afresh together. When Abby and her kids moved in, they acted as though it was their place, not Mary's. Mary, who works from home, lost all her privacy. Liam and Abby would often leave their kids with Mary to babysit without asking and go out for hours to enjoy romantic time together. Mary was at her wit's end and called me to ask for help getting rid of Liam and Abby. She said she couldn't live with her dad anymore and needed me to talk to them and make them move out because she was too scared to stand up to her dad herself. I was furious that, after weeks of silence and the humiliation she put me through at my birthday party, Mary had the audacity to ask for my help without even having the decency to apologize first. I firmly told her she should have considered the consequences of supporting her cheating dad over me. I made it clear that she deserved this for taking a side and that she should stick to her words and not contact me ever again. Since then, she's been bombarding me with calls and texts, calling me a bad mother for not helping her out and insisting that, as a parent, it's my duty to stand up for her. Update 3. Just wanted to say that I do agree with the general consensus that my daughter is spineless when it comes to her dad. I don't know why she is so blinded by him. However, I do not plan on helping her out in any way. It's obvious that Liam and Abby are using her as a free babysitter and will continue to use her unless she stands up for herself and kicks them out. It's incredibly gross and disappointing that Liam allowed Abby to move in with them, especially given how Mary had been defending him so passionately at my birthday party. It's clear that my decision to divorce Liam was the right one. He would have definitely continued as affair with Abby if I hadn't left. I decided to send an email to my daughter, once and for all, just like some of you suggested. Here's what I wrote. Hey Mary, I'm still upset about how you treated me, but that doesn't change the fact that you need to stand up for yourself now. It's your home, and you shouldn't have to put up with Dad and Abby acting like they own the place. It's time to take control and let them know they can't stay there. You need to set clear boundaries and stand firm. If you don't, they will continue to use you as a cash cow forever. Your dad is not your responsibility. I hope you find the strength to do what's right for yourself. In the future, if you ever truly realize the error in your ways and want to apologize, I will be here. Until then, take care. I also reached out to Kyle to inform him about Abby's current living arrangement and the way she has been neglecting the kids by forcing my daughter, Mary, to take care of them. Turns out that he had also recently discovered Abby and Liam had been living together. A fact Abby had been concealing from him ever since she moved in with Liam. She knowingly never let him pick up the kids from Mary's palace, and they would always meet at a neutral location somewhere outside. She would also make those innocent kids lie to him by instructing them to never mention Mary's home or that Liam was living with them. When he did eventually find out from mutual friends about Abby staying at Mary's place, he was shocked and was questioning the validity of the information as he didn't have any proof yet. However, after I confirmed the details with him, his mind is now made up. He and his lawyer plan to fight for custody of his children to remove them from Abby's care permanently. If Kyle succeeds, Abby will lose the child support she's been relying on. With both Abby and Liam currently jobless, their financial situation would become even more dire. Without that support, they could face significant challenges, and if Mary decides to kick them out, they could also end up on the streets. I just hope that my daughter finally does the right thing.